For decades, you've been taught your savings and wages are stable. What if your daily money is not what you think? It's an illusion, a promise based on fragile consensus, not a fixed reality. This belief that money is real is the greatest deception in finance history. To grasp the risk you face, we must travel to one moment that changed the global system, severed the ancient ties between currency and tangible value. Welcome to the Denarius Principle. I am Professor Sterling Vance. That pivotal moment, which redefined financial history, took place on a quiet Sunday evening, August 15, 1971. In America, President Richard Nixon addressed the nation. He was not announcing peace or a tax cut. He was announcing the end of money as we knew it. Almost no one realized the shift's magnitude. With an air of calm authority, Nixon declared the U.S. would temporarily suspend converting the dollar into gold. This technical statement sounded minor, but beneath the bureaucratic language lay a revolution. The dollar had been the anchor of the global system, tied to gold at $35 per ounce under the Bretton Woods Agreement. This system guaranteed stability for a generation, pegged to the world's most trusted metal. The problem was simple. America was spending heavily on war and social programs and printing too many dollars. Foreign governments demanded their gold back. As U.S. reserves shrank, America could no longer keep its promise. Nixon's temporary suspension was permanent. He never reopened the gold window. That night, the contract between the government and citizen was broken. The link between money and reality was decisively severed. The dollar, and soon every major global currency, was no longer a claim on something tangible. It was paper, or a digital entry, backed only by government decree. This is called fiat currency. Let it be done. For the first time, there was no finite limit on how much money could be created. The world's financial fate depended not on the scarcity of gold, but on the discipline of politicians and central bankers. That day, money died. The collapse of money's link to reality did not begin in 1971. That was merely the final formal act. The disaster we face today follows a precise cyclical failure repeated across millennia, from ancient empires to modern republics. A financial system unbacked by anything tangible, relying only on government trust, always ends the same way. History is not merely a record of the past. It is a warning. We call this recurring cycle the Denarius Principle. To see our future, we must look 2 millennia into the past, to the height of the Roman Empire. Rome's success was built on 2 foundations, its legions and its currency. The denarius, a silver coin respected across the known world. For centuries, the denarius was a beacon of stability. When first minted, it contained nearly 4.5 grams of pure silver. It was a tangible store of wealth, and citizens knew exactly what they held. It represented trust in the Roman state, but governments rarely resist the temptation of easy money. Roman emperors, facing mounting military costs and massive public works, needed more currency than their silver mines could provide. The solution was silent, simple, and catastrophic. It began reducing the silver content of the denarius. Nero started it subtly, but later, emperors like Commodus and Septimius Severus accelerated the debasement aggressively. The coin looked the same, but its actual value was diluted. This debasement was the Roman equivalent of modern currency printing. It was the original silent tax. The government used cheaper coins to pay its debts, transferring the cost directly to the people through higher prices, or inflation. By the end of the 3rd century, the denarius was barely silver at all. It was mostly copper, plated with a thin wash of white metal. The coin that started as 95% silver finished as less than 5% silver. The empire was drowning in worthless money. The Denarius Principle teaches us this. Whenever a government gains the unilateral power to redefine its currency's value, it will inevitably use that power to steal wealth from its citizens. Trust, once betrayed, destroys the economy. This is the historical backdrop to Nixon's decision. Rome's economic collapse was a slow, agonizing death by debasement. Our current system is following the exact same path, only at a much faster digital pace. After 1971, money creation became unconstrained, and debt was decoupled from reality, meaning governments could fund endless deficits simply by creating currency out of thin air, the power unimaginable to previous generations. This new power fundamentally changed the incentive structure for politicians and central bankers, replacing fiscal discipline with the easy temptation of expansion, allowing them to defer inevitable financial pain indefinitely. Our current system is designed not for stability, but for perpetual growth of the money supply. And this mechanism of growth is precisely where the greatest theft of your personal wealth takes place. Every single day. This is the silent tax, often mislabeled as mere inflation, which is not a natural economic phenomenon, but rather a deliberate policy outcome, a hidden devaluation of the time and effort you invested in earning your money. Imagine inflation as an invisible siphon constantly draining purchasing power from your bank account. For every dollar created by the central bank, the value of every existing dollar is marginally reduced. A subtle transfer of wealth. The transfer is completed when the government or banks use the freshly printed money first, before the new supply has fully circulated and raised all prices, allowing them to benefit at the expense of ordinary citizens. In Roman times, the emperor had to physically collect the silver coins, melt them down, and physically add base metals to reduce the value, a visible, labor-intensive act of fraud that citizens could eventually see and feel. Today, that laborious physical act of debasement is replaced by a few keystrokes on a computer screen, giving central banks the ability to create trillions in new currency instantaneously and without any public scrutiny or debate. This digital debasement is far more insidious than the Roman method because it is invisible, fast, and constantly normalized through financial jargon like quantitative easing or deficit spending, obscuring the simple truth. The truth is, whether you reduce the silver content of a denarius coin or you increase the digital supply of the dollar, the economic principle remains identical. The currency's value is being destroyed to pay for the state's excesses. The average citizen rarely hears the word fiat, but they experience its destructive power daily, feeling the slow, grinding erosion of their savings and their future prospects. This is not a theoretical problem for economists. This is a crisis of trust that directly impacts your ability to retire, pay for your children's education, and even afford basic necessities like housing and food, undermining the core promise of financial stability. The betrayal of 1971 set in motion a profound shift in power, transferring value away from the productive worker and saver and handing it directly to the leveraged, debt-ridden state and its allies in the banking sector. To illustrate the catastrophic cost of this system, look closely at this chart. This is what I call the PowerPoint of doom, revealing the true purchasing power of the dollar. Since the gold window was closed by President Nixon before 1971, the dollar was a steady store of value anchored by gold. Since then, its value has plummeted, losing over 97% of its purchasing power over the last 5 decades. An undeniable metric. Think about that for a moment. Almost every dollar you work to save today is worth only 3 cents compared to what it was worth before money died, a silent, institutionalized confiscation of your hard-earned wealth. This is why the cost of big-ticket items has exploded far beyond the rate of official inflation reports. The problem isn't that houses or college degrees suddenly became 10 times harder to build or provide. The problem is the massive, unconstrained expansion of the money supply, which has flooded the markets and bids up the prices of fixed assets like real estate, making generational wealth inaccessible to most young families. Healthcare and higher education costs are two of the most egregious examples, benefiting directly from easy credit and printed currency, leaving the average global citizen buried under insurmountable debt. The great challenge of our time is understanding that your money is not failing. It is being successfully diluted by design, and failing to acknowledge this truth leaves you defenseless against the silent theft. Understanding the system is only the first step. The final, most crucial step is to adapt your financial life to operate outside of its fundamental flaws and protect your wealth from systemic failure. You cannot beat the silent tax by working harder or getting a higher salary, because every gain will ultimately be captured by the devaluation process inherent in the fiat system's design. True financial defense requires adopting the mindset of a historical skeptic, one who understands that governments will always prioritize short-term spending over the long-term integrity of their money. The antidote to fiat currency, which is money of abundance and debt, is hard money. The principle of scarcity, where value is derived from finite supply and durability, not political decree. Throughout history, successful civilizations used money defined by these characteristics. It must be scarce, durable, divisible, portable, and fungible, a system that the Roman emperors and modern central banks fight against. Hard money is essentially a savings technology that rewards long-term planning and resists political tampering, acting as an impenetrable store of value outside the inflationary environment. To survive the modern Denarius principle, you need to build a financial bunker built upon two core pillars, the pillar of sound money and the pillar of knowledge and deep-seated skepticism. The first pillar involves actively removing yourself from the cycle of unbacked promises by holding assets that cannot be manipulated or inflated away by any government or central bank in the world. The second pillar, which this channel is dedicated to, is recognizing the financial narratives designed to mislead the public, understanding the history so you are never surprised by the future's events. You must stop viewing money merely as a medium of exchange and start viewing it as a technology for storing your life's energy and time across decades, ensuring it cannot be stolen without your consent. To translate the Denarius principle into a defense strategy, we must focus on two asset classes that historically survive periods of monetary debasement and are free from the political manipulation of central banks. The first class is precious metals, specifically physical gold and silver, which have been humanity's trusted store of value for 5 millennia. Gold's price doesn't truly rise. Rather, the value of the paper currency used to measure it simply falls. Gold is the ultimate anti-fiat asset. It is scarce, globally accepted, and cannot be printed by any government to meet its funding needs, making it a vital hedge against the inflationary spiral caused by debt. The second class is decentralized digital scarcity, the technological evolution of hard money, represented by assets like Bitcoin, which replicate the scarcity of gold but with superior divisibility and transportability. Bitcoin is governed by mathematical code, not political decree. Its supply is fixed and transparent, a direct antithesis to the endless, opaque printing power of central banks post-1971. I am not advocating speculation. I am advocating risk mitigation. The goal is not to get rich quickly, but to diversify your savings out of the fiat ecosystem, ensuring a portion of your wealth is beyond the reach of the silent tax. To begin, dedicate a structured percentage of your savings to these hard assets, treating them not as investments but as insurance against government and central bank incompetence, which history proves is inevitable. Your biggest financial decision is not choosing between stocks and bonds, but choosing between soft money, which degrades with time, and hard money, which holds value despite the passing of political cycles. The second actionable step is to embrace knowledge. Learn the principles of Austrian economics. Understand how central banks manipulate rates and recognize the language used to mask the simple truth of debasement. The Denarius principle is a warning, not a prophecy of absolute doom. It simply tells us that trust must be earned. When central institutions break their promise, you must not pay the price for their failure. You must protect yourself. We began this discussion with the day money died, August 15, 1971. That was not a simple economic shift. It was the moment the modern state gave itself the ultimate untraceable tool for taxing the productive members of society. We have shown that the modern phenomenon of inflation is simply the current manifestation of the ancient Denarius principle, where political necessity always overrules financial integrity. The truth hidden behind complex economic rhetoric is straightforward. Your money is being deliberately diluted, and history guarantees this process will only continue until the system is forced to reset. You have now seen the historical playbook from Rome's copper-plated coins to today's digital printing. You are no longer merely a participant in the economy. You are an informed defensive strategist. The choice is now yours. Remain passive and allow the silent tax to slowly erase your future, or take the necessary steps to secure your wealth and assets that respect the fundamental law of scarcity. Never forget the most important lesson of the Denarius principle. When trust in the currency is lost, only physical and mathematically scarce assets retain their value and provide true sanctuary. This channel, the Denarius principle, is dedicated to arming you with the historical context and financial foresight needed to protect yourself in this age of managed delusions. If you seek the truth behind the headlines and wish to understand the financial history that shapes your future, ensure you subscribe and hit the notification bell. Share this video with those you care about. The first step toward defense is knowledge, and spreading this critical knowledge is essential to breaking the cycle of financial deception. I am Professor Sterling Vance, and I thank you for watching. Protect your principle. I will see you in the next analysis.